come and our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our church. Amen.
Amen. Welcome to these proceedings, honorable members. Members of the public, members of the press. In the public gallery, we have members from the County Assembly of Kakamega who have come to attend these proceedings, and we have agreed to them to do so. You're welcome. You may take your seats. While you're up here, no cheering, no talking, you just listen. Honorable members, on the 19th of December 2024, I received a communication from His Excellency the President nominating the Honorable Mutahi Kagwe EGH as CS for Minister of Agriculture and Livestock Development, the Honorable William Kabogo as CS Minister of Information, Communication and Digital Economy, the Honorable Lee Kinyanjui as Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry. I thereafter communicated to the House, and as required under the law, this Committee on Appointments is to conduct what in American jurisdiction they call approval hearings. In our jurisdiction, we call it vetting. Pardon? So that we can be able to assess the suitability or otherwise of the nominees in holding public office in the manner His Excellency the President has proposed to the House. We are going to have this proceeding start in the next few minutes, starting with the Honorable Mutahi Kagwe. Don't call him in yet. Thereafter, William Kabogo, and finish with Lee Kinyanjui. Honorable members, I have received a request by a gentleman called Aura, and his advocate called Harrison Kinyanjui. Wakili habari? Okay, get seated. Aura has asked this committee to have Harrison Kinyanjui appear before us and cross-examine Nominee Kagwe on the basis of a memorandum that they have sent to us. My direction, honorable members, is that under the Parliamentary Approval Act Cap 7F, Section 6 thereof, there is no contemplation in the Act of any contesting party to appear before this committee to cross-examine any nominee. The provision of the law is that whoever has any issues on a nominee deposits an affidavit, as the gentleman Aura has rightly done. Such an affidavit is then commissioned by a commissioner for oaths, as it has been done, and is forwarded to the Clerk of Parliament within the time stipulated. It has been done, and the committee will then, in the process of conducting the hearings, put questions to the nominee if they wish on the basis of the affidavit, and the nominee who has been furnished with the affidavit would have responded to all the allegations therein. I'm advised that he has done. So the record is available to our support team, and whatever contents therein will form part and parcel of the findings of the committee in terms of its accuracy, its factuality, its veracity, and so on and so forth, in establishing the suitability of otherwise of the nominee. So to Mr. Aura and your lawyer, you're at liberty to sit in that gallery and listen to the proceedings, but the privilege of you appearing to cross-examine a nominee is not provided for in any law. This is not an adversarial proceeding, neither is it a trial. It is simply an inquisitorial process to find out whether the nominees are suitable or not. I think that clears the issue. I'll therefore direct that the first nominee, the Honorable Mutahi Kagwe, be brought in. Yes.
Speaker.
Yes, Majority Leader.
Honorable Speaker, we are well guided by your ruling on that matter. Probably because Advocate Harrison Kinyanjui has many of our numbers. And last time we allowed Kenyans to contribute to the vetting process through text messages. Maybe you could also advise Advocate Harrison Kinyanjui. He can always, if he needs a follow-up question, he can always text any of the members present.
Harrison, if you have any question that you think has been left out, you are truly here will receive it on my line or on any of the members. You are a well-known lawyer, and I'm sure you have sued some of these members here in different capacities. Send them messages, they will ask your questions. We have also received memoranda, like you were briefed earlier, against and for the nominees William Kabogo and Liki Nyanjui. Will deal with them when they appear before the committee. And as we start, I also want to thank Kenyans who have shown interest in this process and sent memoranda. Particularly Mr. Aura, who has sent us 118 paragraphed affidavit on the nominee sitting before the committee now. We'll now start. The Honorable Mutahi Kagwe, that's your name, but we'll invite you to put your name on record and wait thereafter for members to introduce themselves. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Chairman. My name is indeed Mutahi Kagwe.
Thank you. I'm the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Chairman of this committee. I'll invite all members to introduce themselves, starting with my deputy.
Gladys Boss, member for Uasin Gishu County and also Deputy Speaker.
Go ahead with Majority Leader.
Kimani Ishongwa, Member of Parliament Kikuyu, Leader of Majority.
Junet Mohammed, Member of Parliament, Sona East, Leader of the Minority Party.
David Kosing, MP Pokot South.
Nelson Koech, Member of Parliament, Belgut constituency.
Gikaria David, Nakuru Town East constituency.
Naisula Lesuda, MP Samburu West.
Robert Mbui, MP Kadhiani, Deputy Leader of the Minority.
Owen Baya, MP Kilifi North, Deputy Leader of the Majority Party.
George Gitonga Murugara, Member of Parliament, Tharaka constituency.
Ferdinand Kevin Wanyonyi, Member of Parliament, Kwanza, Trans Nzoia County, member of this committee.
Abdul Rahim Daud, MP for North Imenti, Meru County.
Mase Mary, MP Teso South, Busia County.
Abdi Shuria, MP Balambala, Garisha County. Honorable Mishi Mboko MP Likoni, a member of this committee.
Rehab Mukami, County MP Nyeri, member of this committee.
Didoraso, MP Saku, Marsabit County.
Stephen Mule, MP Matungulu, Machakos County.
Honourable Speaker, my name is Samuel Njoroge, Clerk to the National Assembly. We have a strong secretariat today, Honourable Speaker, supporting the committee.
Nominee, all the ladies and gentlemen on the back row are our backup staff, senior officers of Parliament. We also have members of the Fourth Estate present. In the words of Edmund Burke, the most powerful estate in any establishment. We'll now invite you to take an oath. If you are Christian, you take the Bible. If you are Muslim, take the Quran, Holy Quran. If you are Hindu, there is a holy book for Hindus. If you are none of the above, you can affirm.
I'm a Christian, Mr. Chairman.
Take the Bible in your right hand and read the oath as recited there.
I, Mutahi Kagwe, do swear that the evidence I shall give before this committee on the matters under its consideration shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Point of order.
Yes.
If I'm not wrong, the nominee is meant to lift his Bible as gives
yes.
the oath.
Yes.
Very well.
You lift it with your right hand. Go ahead.
I, Mutahi Kagwe, do swear that the evidence I shall give before this committee on the matters under its consideration shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thank you. Sit down and sign to the oath. Having signed to the oath, nominee, if you have your documentation that the invitation directed you to come with, pass them on to the sergeant to give the clerk. You have already done so? Excellent. Honorable members, I want to disclose that the nominee was my yearmate at the University of Nairobi. The nominee and I served in the cabinet of our late President Mwai Kibaki. That, however, will not in any way impair or affect my capacity to question him on his suitability for the job for which he has been nominated. Thank you. Now, Honorable Mutahi Kagwe, in less than 5 minutes, tell this committee who you are, your background, your education, and why you think you are suitable to hold office for which you have been nominated.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the nominating committee. First and foremost, before I start, Mr. Chairman, let me just say that I want to say thank you. First, I would like to say thank you to God indeed, because that is why He is why we are here today. Secondly, I wish to take this opportunity to thank His Excellency, the President, for this appointment or nomination, which I hope will be approved by this committee. Thirdly, Mr. Chairman, I very briefly will say that, as I said, my name is Mutahi Kagwe. I was born in Nyeri County. And Mr. Chairman, if you allow, as I go along, I will give the reasons. I will tie up the reasons why I think I'm suitable for this job with my background. I went to primary school in a rural school in Nyeri, and I think that is where I started the journey to this discussion here today. Most of you will remember that in primary schools, or some of you will remember that in primary schools, we used to have what was called the 4K Club. The 4K Club is where we started our farming. Some of us went there. And Mr. Chairman, if you remember, the 4K clubs introduced us to agriculture. And that's why I picked my talent of planting trees and so on. Mr. Chairman, in my primary school, what we did, I lived a rural primary school life where we did a lot of work in coffee. I have carried coffee on my backside to take it to the factories. First in Ishamara, if anybody knows the place, in Nyeri. We have spent our school holidays in coffee factories where we were drying the coffee beans and so on and so forth.
You know what 4K meant?
Kuungana, kufanya, kuungana,
kufanya, kusaidia Kenya.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That's what it was.
Yeah, and I was a member of that, and clearly you two are a member. Yeah, that's what it meant. And Mr. Chairman,
the majority leader did know that.
Yeah.
I think he went to school when 4K was dead.
Probably. But it is one of the things perhaps we should think about reviving as we go along. Mr. Chairman, I then went to Kagumo High School, where I studied for 6 years. But in the course of my studies too, I was a member of the agricultural club in the school. And it is through the agricultural club in the school that we actually started eating eggs at Kagumo High School, because it is how we started the school poultry project. And I remember distinctly Mr. Gisheru, who was our teacher, leading that whole project, and just emphasizing to us the importance of agriculture at the time. But I was successful in Kagumo High School, and I went to the University of Nairobi, where, as you graciously acknowledged, Mr. Chairman, we were in school together, where I graduated with a bachelor's degree in commerce. And I want to talk about that commerce degree, Mr. Chairman, because a degree in commerce prepares you generally for business management. May it be the public business in public or business in the private sector. And my education was rounded enough so that in the course of my career, as I left university, in the course of my career, I have managed very different businesses, both in public and private life. I also went on, Mr. Chairman, to do a master's degree at USIU, again in business administration, a master's in business administration, emphasizing my studies more in management information systems as well as finance. Mr. Chairman, during this time, I did my master's when I was working, but I started off my working career at an interesting small place called Mashambani Magazine. Mashambani Magazine was a magazine published by trend publishers, which was about farming. And I later, in my capacity as a marketing manager of that company, closed Mashambani Magazine and replaced it with Farmer's Voice. The Farmer's Voice magazine, which I worked for, was actually the KFA magazine. Those of you who remember, the Kenya Farmers Association is the one that owned the Farmer's Voice, which I published and ran for 2 years. So again, Mr. Speaker, that's why I said the journey that I'm going to explain has gone on to attach me to this interview here today. Of course, I would never have foreseen that this was going to happen. So, Mr. Speaker, having finished my education, I went on to run Trend Publishers, which was Viva, better known as Viva Magazine. I left Viva Magazine and joined the Standard Newspaper Group as advertising manager, followed on where I rose in the group, which was then owned by Lonro East Africa, to become the commercial operations director. Following my 11 years as an employee of Lonro, I then branched out on my own to start my own businesses. And since then, that is what I have been doing in my private life, running businesses over that period since the year 1992, when I left formal employment. Mr. Chairman, after that, during my period in the year 2002, I ran for office. I felt that having done being educated, having then gone on to develop a successful career, I felt that I should do some public work and serve the people. And I went to Mukurweini constituency, where I ran for office and was elected in 2002 as a member of parliament for Mukurweini constituency. In the course of that, you will remember, Mr. Chairman, that at that time, cabinet secretaries, cabinet ministers were also appointed from the parliament. And I was appointed as the Minister for Information and Communications in the year 2005. I served as Minister for Information and Communication, and I can say that it is one of my most exciting times. And in terms of preparing me for, again, going back to the cabinet as CS for agriculture and livestock, that's where I cut my teeth in that space of understanding government, being clear about the roles that the different arms of government play, being clear about the role of cabinet, collective responsibility, and other aspects that you learn as you do these jobs. I then, in 2007, I lost my position as member of parliament, but then I was appointed by His Excellency, late President Kibaki, to be chairman of the Multimedia University Council. I was the first chairman of that university and laid the foundation of what is now perhaps a uniquely placed university in terms of the technology space and communication space. And again, I'm very proud of my work there and what we did. I then, Mr. Chairman, left.
Wind up.
I then, Mr. Chairman, went to back to Nyeri County, where I became the senator of Nyeri County. Followed after that by my appointment again back to the cabinet as the CS for health in 2019. And Mr. Chairman, all that experience that I have had, both my education, my experience in school, my experience in private sector, my experience as cabinet secretary and the Minister for Information, Cabinet Secretary for Health, have all, in my opinion, ably prepared me for this particular position.
Thank you. I'll invite members to put questions to you, starting with the Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Mr. Mutahi Kagwe, now that you're going to be the Minister of Agriculture, we know certain challenges exist in that sector. First, Kenya is a net importer of foods that is capable of producing, like edible oil and rice and wheat. We also know the fact that the average age of a farmer is 65. yet our population is highly youthful. If you're approved for this appointment, what strategies will you employ to make agriculture more attractive and profitable to young people so that we can ensure that we have food security in the future? Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa. Now, let me just start by the rider that you started with, which is the importance of agriculture in the country. And to say that over the years, the problem that you have alluded to, the issue of food importation, the issue of youth, has been around with us. The framework on which the current agriculture ministry is being run, or is agricultural sector transformation and growth strategy. Mr. Chairman, I want to raise this issue broadly to say the following. First, there has been a misguided notion, I think, over the years that we have all made. And that is to say that the focus, the initial focus of everything in agriculture is production. Mr. Chairman, what we must refocus on in the ASDGS is coming on for review, because it was structured in 2019 and is coming up for review after 5 years. Mr. Chairman, the only way that agriculture is going to be the kind of industry, the kind of structure, the kind of mainstay for our people that we are ever going to construct is if the farmer becomes a central consideration of everything that we do. Mr. Chairman, until and unless the farmer looks at his profit and loss statement and sees that he is making more money than he is spending, we are going to continue having issues of food security. We are going to continue having issues of underproduction of food items, as well as cash crop items, as well as livestock items. So the focus to me, and what we must begin to philosophize about, has got to be, how do we put more money in the farmer's pocket? If we ask ourselves that statement, and I want Mr. Chairman to say that I recall very distinctly that when I was appointed Cabinet Minister for Information, and I tried to figure out how to deal with the many problems that were there, we arrived at one sentence: let's take a telephone and it works. Everything else we do around us must be focused on that issue. Whether we are going to get international gateways, whether we are going to license other players in the market, it is all should be about the concept of a telephone working. Similarly, if we are going to revive agriculture, the only way we are ever going to do it is when the farmer is profitable. When the farmer is profitable, we'll have enough food. When the farmer is profitable, we'll have enough for exports and so on. But no matter how many papers we write, no matter how many debates we have, no matter how much discussion we are going to have, unless and until the farmer looks at his balance sheet and says that income equals price times quantity, we are not going to succeed. So for me, therefore, when we look at the sphere, when we look at the entire agricultural space, then things that we do should go to that. You talked about the youth. Youth today, Gen Zs, millennials, and others, are about one thing if they are going to go to business. It's about profit. It's about making money. No youth is going to go to agriculture because we are urging them to go there. They are only going to go to agriculture if they are going to make money. And the only way they are going to make money is by taking the necessary steps that we have to make in order for agriculture to be responsive to profit making. Now, Mr. Chairman, this is very broad, and therefore you allow me space just to expand a little bit. There are many activities within the agricultural sector that we have to carry forward, that we have to do. For example, just to take youth as an example. In order for us to attract the youth into agriculture, youth have no land to grow food on. A lot of the young people don't have land. So we have to think broadly about how can we afford them land first. There is a lot of land, ADC and other organizations, private sector, land that is lying idle, that is not being used, that we can lease to these people. Now, in order for us to lease land to these people, we have got to make sure that the land, that the use of the land that they are getting is going to be profitable to them. Because that's why, in the first place, they are going to go for that idea. How are you going to do that? Our research organizations must ensure that we have done proper soil analysis. Our seed people must have the correct seeds so that people can plant seeds that germinate, seeds that produce the correct product. We have got to plant the right crops in the right places so that they can grow en masse and produce more per acre. So we have got to use the technology because youth are interested in technology. And also we have to define, when we say that the youth should be involved in agriculture, which part of agriculture are we talking about? Because it is not just about growing to grow crops. For example, tourism in agriculture is being involved in agriculture. You know, you travel all over the world and you see yourself being taken to places where they grow all sorts of things in other nations. We want people to come to Kenya also to see our agriculture. That's an area that can be attractive to the youth. There is fintech and agri-finance. These are the areas that the youth are going to be interested in. So in a nutshell, Mr. Chairman, the business of agriculture has got to be looked at from a profit and loss in order for us to make it worthwhile and in order for us to revive it. Agriculture for the youth must be made cool. It is too ordinary. It's too boring. Youth are not going to go there the way it is structured today. It's got to be something more exciting that involves technology, that involves new ways of doing things, that involves areas in agriculture that we have not quite spent our time on. Things like hydroponics, aquaponics. These are areas that they are going to look at. The use of technology means that they are going to introduce new things in agriculture that do not currently exist. What does that mean, therefore? It means that the training that we are going to engage in, working together with the ministries of education, we have to look at the training that we are giving the agricultural sector, the agricultural students. What are we training them in? The future of agriculture is going to be in technology. AI, for example, artificial intelligence, is going to play a very crucial role in the future of agriculture. And if that is the case, are we educating our people, our future farmers, enough to deal with that issue? They are doing it elsewhere. If you go across the world, they will be doing that. So the question is whether we are preparing ours to compete with the best in the world.
Thank you. Majority Leader, I will encourage you, nominee, to exercise some brevity in answering questions. You have 2 hours engagement with us.
I'm trying, Mr. Chairman. It's just the breadth of the question.
Yes, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, maybe I'll start the CS nominee from his response to Mr. Aura's affidavit in respect to your suitability for appointment based on your professional academic qualifications. And he responded by saying that the fundamental criteria for appointment to such a position is based on one's ability to provide effective leadership and service to the public. And in that regard, you say you have the requisite qualifications to serve as Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, despite not having any training in agriculture. And probably you also didn't have any training in health when you served as Health Minister. But CS, in my view, you did well in terms of communicating, especially around the COVID time. You were on TV, in fact, people christened you the COVID CS. I would want to hear what exactly you intend to do, because again, in my view, we have had a communication problem, and more so in the State Department for Livestock and also the State Department for Agriculture. You remember last year the issues that we had with subsidized fertilizer procurement and the communication that came around that issue. Towards the end of the year, we also had a similar problem. I had to withdraw a bill that came to Parliament from the State Department of Livestock, the Livestock Bill, largely on account of the disinformation that was being propelled in both mainstream and social media. And this bill is anchored on policies that are espoused by the government through the ministry. I would want to hear what you intend to do now as Cabinet Secretary. One, to provide that effective leadership within the ministry, to communicate effectively to the public what is contained in the bills that you will bring to Parliament, because Parliament tends, and in this case, my office of the Leader of Majority, we tend to take the flak from everybody, believing that all legislation that comes from government is authored by parliamentarians and the office of the Leader of Majority. So I want to hear first what you intend to do to ensure that there is effective leadership in terms of communication. And as I said, in my view, you have done well in your previous postings, whether it was in ICT or in health. To CS, I've also noted from your CV and the documents that have been submitted, as Cabinet Secretary in the past, you have served for 2 years in all the ministries you have served. Is it coincidence or fate? Because you are CS Health for 2 years, you are CS ICT again for 2 years. Are you going to be CS Livestock Agriculture for 2 years since you are being appointed in 2025? I don't know whether it's fate or by design. Lastly, you have spoken at length on the nexus between farming and the profit and loss for the farmer and what you would want to see in the ministry. We have also heard from government, especially from the president, that we have now as a country fixed our production side. I would want to hear, and again, based on your training as a student of commerce, what exactly do you intend to do to ensure that there is a proper nexus between the productivity that we are saying we have increased, whether it's sugar, whether it's maize, whether it's rice. How do you link that to markets? And bearing in mind that coffee, the coffee you are speaking about drying in your younger years, most of the marketing is done in the Ministry of Agriculture. It's in our State Department, in cooperatives, I think. Whether it is milk, again, you produce, the marketing is with someone else. Coffee you produce, tea you produce, marketing is done by someone else. How are you going to create that nexus to ensure that also the country benefits from your experience as a marketer and as a student of commerce to make farming profitable, not just for future farmers, but even for our current farmers, many of who probably are not as tech savvy as the younger generation. And I would really want, I was looking to hear when you spoke about the P&L, how you intend to get that nexus between the good productivity that we now have to making profits for farmers to make it profitable, because that's the only way you'll be able to sustain. This sector has been riddled by cartels, whether it is in the tea sector, coffee sector, milk sector, there are cartels all over. And we have seen in the past people come into this office, very good-looking people like yourself, with very good intentions, but they get swallowed by the cartels.
Thank you.
How do you intend to protect yourself from being swallowed by these coffee cartels, tea cartels, milk cartels?
Brevity.
Mr. Chairman, you'll agree that there is quite a bit to respond to here, but I'll try and be as brief as I can.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa. Let me start with the issue of communication, because I think that is what you laid emphasis on. I think the first thing to remember is that in my capacity, if I'm approved by this committee, in my capacity as a cabinet secretary, I am simply a cog. I'm simply part of a cog of people and stakeholders that must be involved in the decision-making processes that you have referred to.
You can't be part of a cog. You can be a cog in a wheel.
Yes.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yes.
Indeed, Mr. Chairman. One of the cogs. That is what I am. And Mr. Chairman, The long and short of it is the following, that it is not possible to make progress in that area unless we work together with the stakeholders. We have got to have a consultative approach to these things. Cows belong to individuals. Maize in shambas belong to individuals. They don't belong to the government. You know, coffee in coffee farms belong to individuals. So any decision that we make has got to be made with those individuals who are the owners of the of whatever products and commodities that we are going to be discussing. That's number one. Number two is that they are experts in these areas. They are also experts who have been trained to make decisions in those areas. And I'll tie that up with what you said about COVID, the issues of COVID, which I'll come to on its own at some point if the chairman will allow. And to say the following, that part of the reason why there was so much necessity of communicating virtually every day to the people is the weighty issue that was at hand. You are talking about life and death of people. And therefore, you need to keep them abreast with any issue that is developing in relation to their own lives. Because that is what it came down to. Similar, and that's why we had a press conference virtually every day, whether it was made by myself or other players, other ministry officials. It was determined, we determined that that is the way we were going to handle communication to them. Now, to do so, we got the right information from the people who are technically qualified to give that information. We had epidemiologists, you know, led by Professor Anzara, who informed us about the right thing to tell people and the information that people need in order for them to make their own decisions. So the first thing is that we have got to be consultative. We have got to make people, we have got to consult people, we have got to consult the owners, we have got to the owners of agriculture, we have got to consider the experts of agriculture, so that as we make progress, we move together, we work together. If you take an example, and I mentioned coffee, even sugar, you know, you cannot make decisions about sugar unless we involve the person who is actually going out there growing sugar, you know, on day-to-day basis. The sugar actually belongs to him. And there is also obviously consultations with the other bodies, for example, this organization, you know, the National Assembly and the Senate. There are institutions that are involved in what we are doing at the ministry. And you will remember, Mr. Chairman, that agriculture is essentially a devolved function. In Schedule 4 of the Constitution, there are the areas that are supposed to be handled by the county governments, and it divides it into areas that are also supposed to be handled by the national government. So we have to involve the stakeholders who are going to be largely, and to a large extent, the county governments. So in terms of communication, I want to be clear that we are going to establish a very robust, you know, communication system that is going to be both in mainstream media as well as social media. And I know that Mr. Chairman, the Honorable Leader of Majority, spoke about the ills sometimes, you know, the negatives that come. I think sometimes we have to agree that in this day and age in the democracy, we have got to take both the positives and the negatives, and they are going to keep coming anyway, and that is not going to change. So I think for me, what I would like to do is use the same social media, use the same mainstream media, work with the fourth estate to try and disseminate information as much as I can to the farming community. And it won't be the first time, because during the period you have referred to, during the COVID period, part of the key players in terms of dissemination of information and the buy-in to the activities of government was actually members of the fourth estate. They are the ones who assisted us to succeed. And I want to say that my intention is to continue to work with the fourth estate as openly and as transparently as I can. We will be criticized, and that's fine too, because oversight is part of their job. So I intend to keep very closely, to work very closely with them. The area of social media Social media is an area that has come to both help us. It helps us a great deal. There is also the negativity in the social media. And I know that, Mr. Chairman, if one were to talk broadly and say leadership has been made that substantially harder, through social media. But part of the hardship hardship and headaches that one gets from social media is also part of the way that we can communicate more easily, to our people, because they are also on social media. And that which you cannot change, you might as well use, because we are not going to be able to change some of the communication channels that exist. And indeed, we can use them very positively for ourselves. Mr. Chairman, there was a nexus that the Honorable Leader of the Majority wanted me to explain, and that's the issue of the PLL and the production capacity that has clearly increased. It's a fantastic example of what I'm talking about. The reason why the production has increased is twofold. One is because of the good climates that we have fortunately experienced. But two, and to a large extent, is also subsidized fertilizers. It's part of the reason why this increase has come in almost all products, both cash crop and as well as food crops. There has been an increase. Now, when you increase production and you are able to save on post-harvest challenges, it means that the farmer gets this bigger quantity that he has got. But the market is huge. The market for these products is not just here. The market for both livestock as well as crops is both in Kenya and external. Information about the markets is what has largely been missing. And part of this is also the deployment of technology. Because now with a mobile app, you are able to tell where tomatoes have got better prices instantly. But this information is around somewhere, floating somewhere in the market. It's our responsibility as ministry to make sure that that information is available. You also alluded to the issue of the fact that the marketing aspect of most of those cash crops, the boards and everything, is in the Ministry of Cooperatives. That's fine too, because we work in a collective area. We have collective responsibility. Every ministry in government will automatically have to relate with another ministry in government. And it is not just the Ministry of Cooperatives that we have got to work with. We have got to work with the Ministry of Energy, for example. Right now we are waiting for the Ministry of Energy to connect to Kenani, to the Kenani leather park that the ministry is establishing. We are waiting for the Ministry of Water, to also connect water. So we will have to work collectively. We have to work together. Again, coming back to the example that you gave, if you look at the management of COVID-19, it was a whole government approach, whereas the central ministry was the Ministry of Health. The activities that were happening, keeping law and order, the Ministry of Health does not have any askaris. That is Interior that was assisting us in keeping order. The Ministry of Health does not have, is not in charge of matatus and so on. Yet, we are to contain even containment measures, included the transport sector. So we have to work with the CS for transport. Education is not part of health, but it was a huge, huge part of the activities on the Ministry of Health during the COVID period. That too simply illustrates that you need to work collectively with other ministries, and that forms part of collective responsibility.
Yes. Jeanette?
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief, Chair. I wanted to ask the Honorable...
Which chair?
Chairman. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Chairman. Chairman, I want to ask the nominee...
I gave the latitude to your colleague. Now, muulize swali moja moja.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
One is a general question. Chairman, I want to remind the nominee, or to inform him that in the last 2.5 years, he will be the third Minister for Agriculture. There was one who came at the beginning, second one came, we vetted him, you are the third one we are vetting. If you are approved by this House to become the Minister for Agriculture. And the last one we vetted I asked him a question. I told him, do you know what you're getting into? He told me, yes, I know. I want to ask you also, do you know what you're getting into that ministry? You need to tell me more what you think of that. The second issue is the people or the ministry concentrates so much on agriculture and normally forgets about livestock. And in many countries in the world, their GDP growth is even contributed much higher by livestock than agriculture. What do you think you will do in the livestock sector so that the GDP, the livestock sector can contribute to the GDP of the country? And what is your position on the vaccine that's being proposed to give to livestock in this country? What do you think it is? Or how will you implement it? Or what are your views on that thing?
Point of order.
Yes.
I think if you allowed 3 questions, because many of the questions, you will easily answer them with, many responses.
Yes, that's what I was going to do.
Okay.
Posing.
Thank you, Chairman, Speaker. To the nominee, Honorable Mutahi Kagwe. Following what Honorable Junet said, many people think that the Ministry of Agriculture is crops, forgetting the bigger, which is livestock. My question will be, what will you do, particularly the pastoralist people, who keep a lot of animals, but during let's say, drought or something like that, they lose all of them. What will you think, or what will you do, or what will you tell them to listen? That even before drought, for example, that you can buy all of these animals and then give them money to wait until drought goes, then you bring number 2. You are going to be Minister of Agriculture. Where is agriculture? There's no agriculture in national level. In my view, if you look at also first schedule of the Constitution, agriculture is devolved. So when you are minister for who or for what at national level? Are you going to be marketing officer of agriculture, or what is it? And yet agriculture is at level. My proposal will be, or what I want to hear from you, what nexus or structure, legal structures or implementable structures that will be between you yourself and the counties. Because without counties government, without county people, agriculture will just be almost, at national level, it will be a talk show if you don't bring in counties in terms of implementation. Thank you, Chairman.
Nelson.
Thank you very much. Many commentators, Mr. Honorable Mutahi, believe that you did actually handle the COVID-19 quite brilliantly. But however, there are questions and of misappropriation, massive theft at that time, particularly in Kemsa. There are cases that have been handled by this House, particularly by the Parliamentary Accounts Committee, and I just want to draw your attention to a few of them. Number 1 is a question on expenditure of 2 billion on budgeted items in breach of regulation in 2015. Rather, Regulation 2015 requiring public officers to act in the government's interest to be aware on essentials of vote control process. There's also single sourcing of COVID masks supplied contrary to Section 69(2) of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act. I will not highlight all of them, but most importantly also was the acquisition, nominee on vaccines. It is believed that you failed to account on the procurement of 1.6 billion worth of vaccines, and it is still a subject of investigation by this House. What do you have to say about all that was said at that